Various letters of Saint Dionysius. 1. This is a letter from Saint Dionysius the Areopagite to the Monk Gaius.
Darkness becomes even more obscure in the presence of light, especially with a lot of light. Similarly, ignorance hides knowledge, and even more so with abundant knowledge. These concepts are incredibly profound, but should not be seen as a lack. Appreciate them deeply, for they are hidden within those who possess the light. True knowledge, according to God, is ignorance, and the darkness surrounding him is cloaked by all light, concealing all knowledge. If someone thinks they understand God by seeing him, they haven't truly contemplated him, but instead have perceived something else that exists and is known through him. He, however, exists beyond mind and essence, not known or seen in the usual sense, and is recognized beyond essence and beyond mind. This superior state is perfect ignorance, which is the knowledge of him beyond all known things.
2. To the same.
How can we comprehend the pinnacle of everything beyond divinity and goodness? Consider divinity and goodness as the essence of the act of benefiting and deifying, rather than something that can be mimicked by a super-god and super-good, through which we become divine and good. If this principle becomes the cause of deification, and the best is done for those who are deified and made excellent, then for every principal cause beyond the principalities, the essence of divinity and goodness reaches its peak. As much as it is inimitable and immeasurable, it surpasses all imitations and participations, as well as those who imitate and participate.
4. To the same.
You wonder how Jesus, who transcends all things, is fundamentally connected to all human beings. He isn't called a human just because he causes humanity, but because he is genuinely human in his entire essence. We don't separate Jesus from humanity. He is not just a human, nor is he merely beyond essence as a human. Rather, he is truly human, distinct from, above, and among humans, and yet essentially beyond essence. Still, there is always an abundance of superessentiality. With such greatness, he truly enters essence, rises above it, and performs human actions beyond typical human ability. This is shown by the Virgin giving birth in a supernatural way, and water supporting the weight of material and earthly feet, not imagined, but established by unbreakable supernatural power. What if someone navigates through the many existing things, and through divine insight, they come to know beyond the mind and recognize the intentions of Jesus' humanity, possessing the power of superior repulsion? In summary, he wasn't human in the sense of being beyond humanity, but truly became above human while remaining truly human. Furthermore, he didn't perform divine actions simply as God, nor human actions merely as a human. In becoming human, he participated in a new divine human operation with us.
5. To Dorotheus the Minister.
The divine darkness is described as an unapproachable light where God is said to dwell. It's invisible due to its overwhelming brightness and inaccessible because of its exceptional brilliance. In this state, those who are worthy of knowing and seeing God achieve this by not seeing or knowing, truly understanding beyond vision and knowledge. They realize it transcends all things visible and intelligible. Prophetically, the sentiment is, "Your knowledge is wonderful to me, strengthened, and I cannot reach it." Thus, the divine Paul is said to have known God, recognizing him beyond all existing understanding and knowledge. Because of this, he declared that his ways are unsearchable, his judgments inscrutable, his gifts indescribable, and his peace surpasses all understanding. Thus, understanding him beyond all comprehension, knowing that he is the source of everything, beyond all.
7. To Polycarp, the chief priest.
I can't speak for the Greeks or others, but I believe it's enough for good people to truly understand and express the truth within themselves. Anything aligned with the law of truth, when presented rightly and purely, will refute anything else that pretends to be true. It's unnecessary, then, to argue about who reveals the truth to whom. Everyone claims to have a royal coin, but they only possess a deceptive shadow of something pure. If you challenge one, another will argue over the same thing. But when the true thing is rightly placed, and everything else is dismissed with laughter, anything that doesn't hold consistently is expelled from the realm of true truth by itself. Knowing this, I didn't rush to speak to the Greeks or others. I wanted to first understand the truth, and then, as I should, speak it. When you ask why I criticize the sophist Apolophanes, as if using the Greeks' ways against them, it would be more accurate to say that the Greeks use what is divine in non-holy ways, trying to replace divine worship with human wisdom. Therefore, I say there is much glory in some poets who remain materially and emotionally, serving creation rather than the Creator. But Apolophanes himself does not use what is divine in holy ways. The knowledge of what exists, rightly spoken by his philosophy and called the wisdom of God by the divine Paul, needed to bring true philosophers back to the cause of their existence and knowledge. To avoid challenging others' opinions or even its own beyond reason, we must consider Apolophanes, a wise man. He sometimes transcended heavenly order and motion, unless there was a guiding force, creating and transforming everything according to the sacred word. So, how does he not worship what is unknown to us, drawing from the truly existing God, guided by an ineffable power? The sun and the moon are defined by him in their supernatural state, remaining completely still in the universe, with everything aligned according to the measure of the whole day. Furthermore, if all that is superior and contained is elevated, do the contained things not revolve around them? And when a day almost triples in duration and spans 20 hours, it doesn't always reverse and go back by opposite paths. Thus, in very supernatural contrary revolutions, the sun, in its course, wraps its fivefold motion in 10 hours, then analytically retraces a new path in the other 10 hours. This rightly impressed the Babylonians and conquered Hezekiah without a fight, as if equal to a certain god and surpassing men. And here, I do not speak of the great operations in Egypt or other divine signs made elsewhere, but of the common and celestial, triumphing in the universe and in all things. However, Apolophanes says these things are not true. Instead, they are attributed to the priestly memories of the Persians, and the Magi still complete the memorable triple myth of Mithras. But let it be allowed for him due to ignorance or great disbelief. Tell him, what do you say about the eclipse made on the saving cross? As we both arrived near the city of the sun, we were amazed to see the moon crossing in front of the sun, outside the usual time of conjunction, and then, from 9 a.m. until evening, it unbelievably stood opposite the sun's diameter. Let me point out something else. We observed the setting beginning from the east, reaching the solar summit, and then moving backward, not from the same place, with both the setting and clearing occurring contrary to the diameter. These were the supernatural events of that time, all orchestrated by Christ alone, with his immense power, beyond count. If you think it's appropriate, tell Apolophanes, and he will correct me, as I was there with you, observing, seeking everything, and sharing. During that time, divination was neglected, and I don't know why. Then Apolophanes left and said to me as events unfolded, "These, dear Dionysius, are the divine changes of events. That's what we mentioned in the letter. But you have the ability to complete what's missing and bring forth a man wise in God, who exists greatly, and who is truly willing to learn the supreme truth of our religion."
8. Demophilus the Healer on his own gentleness and kindness.
The stories of the Hebrews say, "Dear Demophilus, that the sacred Moses, through his great gentleness, was made worthy of divine friendship." Even if they sometimes describe him as away from the divine presence, they never dismiss his initial gentleness. They mention that the Lord was very angry with those who were arrogant and resistant to divine plans. Yet, when they portray him as a preacher worthy of divine judges, he is praised for previously imitating divine goodness. Indeed, he was very gentle, and because of this, he is called a servant of God. Among all the prophets, he was considered more worthy of divine vision. Certain hard-hearted individuals from the chief priesthood and leadership opposed him and Aaron, surpassing all love of honor and ambition for leadership, yet he received the excellence of the people with God as the judge. Indeed, they also imposed on him, reproaching him for past matters, threatening him, and nearly prevailed, but the gentle one called upon God for salvation. He was very humble, confident that he was blameless in the face of all evil that had begun. For it was necessary that the one speaking with the most gracious God be transformed to this likeness as much as possible, understanding in himself actions beloved by God. But what made David, the father of God, a friend of God? Indeed, he was excellent, even toward his enemy. "I have found," he says, "an exceedingly excellent friend, a man after my own heart." And indeed, the best law was given, and the enemy was subdued to provide for others. And Job, as one without malice, was justified. Joseph did not seek revenge against his brothers who wronged him. Abel straightforwardly and without suspicion met his brother's murderer. All theology praises those who are godlike, not understanding evil beforehand, not doing it beforehand, nor changed from goodness by the malice of others, but acting godlike in the contrary, doing good even to the wicked and extending much kindness to them, inviting them to similar clemency. Let's look beyond. Not just praising the virtues of holy individuals or the goodness of human angels who show mercy to nations, pray to God for them, and warn the misguided and those behaving poorly. They are saddened by evil but rejoice in the salvation of those called to the best, and whatever else theology teaches about the angels who are benefactors. Those who are truly excellent, beyond measure, receive the rays of Christ's beneficence in silence, and through them, we are clearly led into his divine and excellent actions. Isn't it of the greatest and most incomprehensible goodness, as it brings things into existence and has brought everything into being, always wanting everything to come closer to itself and to share in what is his, according to each one's capacity? What then, because it is lovingly held by those who return, strives not to be indignant with those who love and delight in him. He endures those who accuse in vain, defends them, promises more care for them, and in those who are perfect, he approaches and meets them, warmly embracing them all. He does not accuse them of past deeds but loves the one who comes, celebrates, and calls his friends, the best, so that it may be a dwelling place for all who rejoice. But Demophilus, and anyone else hostile to the best, is justly rebuked, taught good things, and improved. For how could it not be right, I say, for the best to rejoice in the salvation of the lost and the life of the dead? Therefore, he lifts those he barely turned from error onto his shoulders, raises the best angels to joy, and is good even to the ungrateful. He makes his sun rise on the good and the bad and offers his own soul for those who flee. But you, as your letters declare, and the one who fell before the priest, as you say, impious and evil, somehow resisted him. Then, what was necessary indeed, he confesses to come to the remedy for evils. But you were not horrified. Instead, with fierceness, you slandered the good priest, who had mercy on the repentant and justified the impious. At the end, you instruct, go to the priest, with similar sentiments. You rushed in, even when there was no justice, into the inner sanctum, and prohibited the Holy of Holies. You write to us, claiming it would destroy the sacred. I have provided salvation and still keep them uncontaminated. Now, therefore, listen to us. Correct the priests serving under you, or have them corrected by your equally powerful servants, even if they appear to act impiously in divine matters, and if anything else forbidden is found to be done. If the most divine things are disorderly and inconsistent, and you expel them from boundaries and laws, it doesn't make sense for the order given by God to be overthrown, for God is not divided against himself. How then will his kingdom stand? If it is of God, as the words say, judgment will follow. But priests are angels and prophets after the high priests of divine judgments. Learn from them through the intermediate ministers, at the right time, through whom you have also been made a worthy servant. Do the sacred symbols proclaim this? Indeed, the Holy of Holies is not simply elevated for everyone. The adornment of those completing the sacred approaches these more than the arrangement of the priests. Next to these are the very ministers, but for the ordained servants, the gates of such are separated, to which they are both perfected and stand, not to guard them, but to more greatly approximate their order and knowledge to the people than the priestly ones. Hence, the sacred principal ordination of priests places them in the divine, giving them indeed a portion of what is inside. For those always standing around the divine altar symbolically love and hear the divine clearly revealed to them, and proceeding in a godlike manner, they reveal what is beyond the divine veils to the subordinate servants, the sacred people, and the purified orders according to dignity, keeping the sacred well uncontaminated, until, tyrannically rushing upon them, you have forced the unwilling Holy of Holies to triumph for you, and you claim you have the sacred and guard it. You haven't seen or heard, nor do you know about the matters concerning the priests, just as you haven't understood the truth of their words. Every day, you argue against these ideas with words, undermining your listeners. If someone unlawfully seized leadership of a nation against the king, they were rightly punished. If someone dared to criticize a leader who justified or condemned certain people, standing among those he commanded, and even spoke ill of him or tried to remove him from leadership, are you so bold, a mere man, against the gentle and best, and his hierarchical laws? These things needed to be said when anyone tried to act beyond their dignity while seeming to act appropriately. Indeed, this is not allowed for anyone. What wrong did Uzziah commit by offering to God? What about Saul sacrificing? Or even the demonic tyrants who truly spoke of Jesus? But all unauthorized bishops are forbidden theology, and each must remain in the order of their ministry, with only the high priest entering the Holy of Holies, and that once a year, according to the hierarchical purification law. The priests handle the holy things, and the Levites must not touch the holy things, or they will die. The Lord was furious with Uzziah's arrogance, and Miriam was struck with leprosy when she tried to impose a law on the lawgiver, and demons attacked the children at the vessels. The Lord said, I did not send them, yet they ran. I did not speak to them, yet they prophesied. And the wicked who sacrifices a calf to me is like one who kills a dog. Simply put, God's perfect justice does not tolerate the wicked. To those who say, in your name we have done many powerful works, the response is, I do not know you, depart all you workers of iniquity. Therefore, as the sacred scriptures say, it is wrong to pursue the holy beyond one's dignity. Indeed, each must pay attention to themselves, and not seek to know and understand things higher and deeper, but only those things ordained for them according to their dignity. So, you might wonder, shouldn't priests who behave improperly be reprimanded and corrected? Is it only those praised for their knowledge of the law who are allowed to dishonor God by breaking it? And how do priests represent God? How can they share divine virtues with the people without understanding their own virtue? Or how can they bring light when they themselves are in darkness? How can they convey the divine Spirit if they don't truly believe in the Holy Spirit, both in practice and truth? However, I will defend you on these points. I'm not against Dimophilos, nor will I let you be harmed by Satan. For every aspect related to God is more godlike, more distant, and at the same time more enlightening, closer to the light, not in a physical sense, but in the most appropriate way that receives from God. If, then, the role of priests is to enlighten, anyone who is not an enlightener or is less enlightened completely falls away from the priestly order and virtue. It seems bold to me that such a hierarchy tries, without fear or shame, to handle divine matters beyond their standing, thinking God is unaware of what he knows within himself, and falsely assuming they can deceive the Father they call upon, daring to turn their tainted blasphemies, not prayers, I would say, into divine symbols in a Christ-like manner. Such a person is not a priest, not at all, but an enemy, deceitful, mocking himself, a wolf among the divine flock, disguised in sheep's clothing. But it's not solely Dimophilos' job to correct these things. Theology doesn't unjustly command the pursuit of justifications. It is right, however, to seek to give each person according to their dignity. This should be pursued justly by everyone, not beyond their standing, because it's rightly distributed to angels, according to dignity, and distributed by them. Nevertheless, not by us, O Dimophilos, but through them to us from God, and through them by the more excellent angels. Simply put, in all things, those according to dignity are distributed from the first to the second by the most orderly and just providence of all. They, along with others ordained by God, distribute roles among themselves and to those who follow according to their rank. However, Dimophilos, with his words, anger, and desires, which are also according to rank, should separate himself without disrupting his own order, while governing those under a higher authority. In the Church, if we see a servant acting against the master, a younger person against an elder, or a son disrespecting and opposing a father with violence, we would be considered impious unless we support those who are more righteous. And indeed, they did the right thing in the past. How can we not feel ashamed when, in anger and desire, we expel the true word and teachings given by God, stirring within us impiety, disorder, and inappropriate behavior? Our blessed lawgiver from God rightly believes it is not suitable to lead the Church of God if one cannot even manage his own household well. For by managing oneself, one can manage others. The one who manages others can manage the household. The one who manages the household can manage the city, and the one who manages the city can manage the nation. Simply put, as the saying goes, he who is faithful in little is also faithful in much, and he who is unfaithful in little is also unfaithful in much. Therefore, separate desires, anger, and words according to their rank. But for you, divine ministers preside, and for them, priests. Indeed, high priests over priests, and apostles and their successors over high priests. And if anyone among them errs in their duties, they will be guided by equally powerful saints, ensuring the order remains intact, with everyone in their rightful place and role. This is our advice to you in understanding and fulfilling your duties. But regarding a wicked and sinful man, as you inquire, I cannot express how to mourn the loss of someone dear with such inhumanity. From whom do you think servants are ordained by us? For if it is not for good, wherever it is necessary for us to be, according to us, all servitude is foreign. Consider yourself, turning to God and other priests, relying more on their care than on achieving perfection, while often showing a lack of compassion towards a kind servant. Have we truly reached spiritual perfection, or do we still need divine grace? Are we guilty of a double fault, as some critics suggest, unaware of our wrongdoings, yet justifying ourselves, believing we have clarity, but in reality, we don't? Heaven was disturbed by this, and I found myself doubting. If I didn't adhere to your teachings, as if they were not meant to be fully understood, perhaps they wouldn't face criticism. Some thought it right to seek your guidance because Dimophilos believes that not everything should be divine or human, nor is there a need for a savior or a compassionate figure. Even priests, due to their noble lineage, understand how to handle the people's ignorance, as they too experience weakness. However, the divine perfecter reaches out to the distant, and as sacred texts state, he is set apart from sinners, demonstrating immense pastoral care. He considers it wrong not to forgive a fellow servant's debt or to withhold what is generously given. Yet, the righteous enjoy their own. In light of these matters, both I and Demophilus must be cautious. Even to those acting against him, he offers forgiveness, enduring from the Father, warning his disciples, as they once judged the Samaritans who persecuted him. This is not said in harsh words, though you roar above and below, you did not seek revenge but left it to God. Tell me, does wickedness bring any good? Remember, we have a high priest who can empathize with our weaknesses, free of malice and full of mercy. He will not argue or shout. He is gentle and the atonement for our sins. Therefore, we do not accept your lack of zeal, even if you repeatedly recall Phinehas and Elijah. When Jesus heard these things, they did not sit well with the gentle and good-spirited disciples. Our most holy and wonderful teacher instructs those opposed to God's teachings with kindness. We should educate the ignorant, not punish them, just as we guide the blind rather than crucify them. But you, seeing someone starting to turn towards the light like a new child, push him away, and when he stumbles in confusion, you harshly kick him. Yet, it is truly honorable that Christ, being the best, searches for the straying over the mountains, calls out to those fleeing, and gently lifts the found one onto his shoulders. Are we not, I ask, counseling ourselves poorly in this way? Are we not aiming the weapon at ourselves? Some indeed act unjustly, while others, trying to do good, do not always achieve what they intend. Those who align themselves with malice or goodness will be filled with divine virtues or enduring passions. They will follow and accompany good angels, both here and beyond, and with complete consecration and freedom from all evils, they will enjoy blessed peace in the everlasting ages and will always be with God, which is the greatest of all good things. However, others will depart from divine and personal peace, both here and after death, and will be with dark demons. Therefore, it is crucial for us to become and remain with the best God and always be with the Lord, not to be separated from the just by evils, enduring according to our own dignity. This is indeed what I fear most of all, and I pray not to partake in all evils. And if you wish, I will recall the divine vision of a certain holy man, and you will not laugh, for I will speak the truth. While I was once near Crete, a holy man named Carpus introduced me. He is a man very suitable for divine visions due to the great purity of his soul. Indeed, he would not attempt the holy sacrifices of the mysteries unless first, through perfect sacred prayers, he had been granted a super-clear vision. He said that he was once saddened by a certain unbeliever. Sadness lingered because he had led someone good away from the church, even during these joyful days following completion. Both needed to be glorified through divine intervention, for God the Savior to understand and receive, for him to have converted, and for him to have triumphed with goodness. He did not abandon the admonished, and throughout their lives up to today, he guided them into divine knowledge, as if already certain of their judgments and of irrational, fierce ones being compelled to understand the just law. Yet within himself, unable to endure this in advance, he somehow wove in much harshness and bitterness, becoming weak and in a poor state. It was evening. Around midnight, he would usually wake up at this hour on his own for divine praises. He rose, having had little sleep, and always using the disturbance from external offenses. Yet, standing in divine conversation, he was not properly restrained and became indignant, saying it was not just for wicked men to live and subvert the straight paths of the Lord. Saying these things, he asked God for a certain heavenly fire so that both could rest mercilessly at once from their lives. As he said this, he thought he suddenly saw the house where he stood shaken, split in two from the roof, and a pyre of much light before him, appearing to descend from a celestial region. The very sky was burning, and Jesus himself was on the heavens back with many angels in a human-like form standing with him. Seeing these things from above, he was amazed. Looking down, Carpus said, I saw, and the earth was deep. This is a chasm of sorrow, dark and separated. And indeed those men, whom he accused, stood trembling before him near the chasm's little door, miserable, just not yet descending from the instability of their own feet. Down below, snakes were crawling and gathering around their feet. Sometimes, they would pull them back, wrapping around them, weighing them down, and dragging them along. At other times, the snakes would swell with their teeth or jaws, or push upwards, always plotting to bring them into sadness. There were also some men among the snakes, against the men above them, shaking, overturning, and striking them. These men appeared to be questioning them, some unwillingly and some willingly, causing harm after a while during their questioning. Carpus said he was pleased looking down, but he neglected what was above. He was angry and dismissive because they had not yet fallen, and despite being charged many times, he couldn't be sad or weary. As he looked up, he could barely see the sky again as he did before. But Jesus, having mercy, rose from the heavenly throne and descended to them, offering a helping hand. Angels with him took one man and another, receiving them. Jesus said to Carpus, "A hand is already prepared for you, child, after me, as a remnant. I am ready again to suffer for the salvation of humans. This is pleasing to me, not because other people sin. However, consider if it is good for you to exchange your place in the chasm with the snakes for one with God, the best, and human angels. These are the things I have heard and believe to be true."
9. Titus the priest wrote a letter asking about the house of wisdom, the cup, the food, and the drink.
St. Timothy responds, "Dear Titus, I'm not sure if any theological symbols known to me have been overlooked. In symbolic theology, we recognize that discussions about God are often complex. Indeed, when purifying souls from imperfections, wise fathers reveal divine and mystical truths through hidden and bold riddles that aren't accessible to the impure. Therefore, we don't rely heavily on rational explanations of divine mysteries. We understand them through symbols that are natural and perceptible to us. However, it's necessary to see these symbols in their pure form. In doing so, they reveal a fountain of life within, standing on its own, a singular power that acts independently, upholding the knowledge of all knowledge, and contemplating by itself. We believe it is essential for us and others to replicate the varied symbolic forms of sacred representation about God. Otherwise, everything becomes filled with incredible and fictitious monstrosities, like the superessential divine generation reshaping the womb of God to give birth physically, or the word emanating into the air from a manly heart, or describing the Spirit breathed from the mouth, and bosoms pregnant with God praising God the Son physically to us, or depicting these things in stages, and presenting certain trees, shrubs, flowers, roots, or fountains of water flowing forth, or brightness generating lights, or other such manifestations of superessential theological sacred descriptions. Concerning the unseen aspects of God's providence, like gifts, manifestations, powers, characteristics, impacts, dwellings, processions, discernments, and unities, human imagination often envisions God in animals, plants, and various stones. These are adorned with imagery like women's garments or barbaric weaponry. It's as if a craftsman adds pottery or metalwork, placing horses, chariots, and thrones beneath them, and preparing daily meals, transforming them to drink, become drunk, sleepy, and intoxicated. What if someone mentions anger, sadness, oaths, madness, curses, fury, misleading promises of sin, and the battle of giants in Genesis, where it's said that those powerful men acted out of fear? This construction wasn't meant to harm others, but for their salvation, scheming, and that counsel set up near the sky in Ahab's deception, along with the material and adulterous passions in songs, and other bold divine compositions, sacredly assembled. These are declarations of hidden problems, multiplied and partial unities, lacking parts, and figurative and multifaceted forms and figures. If anyone could see the hidden beauty within, they would find everything mystical and divine, filled with much theological light. We don't believe that these compositions are reformed for their own sake, but are laid out before the pretended, with much invisible knowledge, so that the most sacred things aren't easily accepted by the impure. They're revealed only to sincere lovers of divinity, as forming every childish imagination into sacred symbols, and to those capable of transcending with simplicity of mind, and with the opportunity for contemplative virtue, towards the simple, supernatural, and preeminent truth of the symbols. It's important to recognize that among theologians, there are two traditions. One is secretive and mystical, while the other is clear and more widely known. The first tradition is symbolic and transformative, whereas the second is philosophical and affirming, covering both the expressible and the inexpressible. Some concepts endure and require the truth of spoken words, while others operate in silence, placing God within the unspeakable teachings of doctrine. According to the sacred mysteries of the saints, none of our sacred teachers in the legal tradition of divine symbols have been absent. We also witness the most sacred angels conveying divine enigmas mystically, with Jesus himself speaking in parables and delivering divine mysteries through symbolic meals. It was appropriate that not only the pure Holy of Holies should be preserved by many, but also that human life, in its indivisible and undivided form, should be illuminated by divine knowledge. This imperishable part of the soul is meant to separate into simple and direct visions of godlike forms. The perishable part, however, serves naturally and extends into the most divine prearranged formations of symbolic representations. Those who create such veils and manifest them, by leaving behind the outer layers of theology, reform within themselves a likeness that leads to an understanding of theology. This visible creation of the universe is a reflection of the invisible God, as Paul explains, and it embodies true reason. Therefore, Theologians interpret some things in a civil and legal manner, while others are seen in a purifying and uncontaminated way. Some aspects are considered humanly and moderately, while others are viewed in a supermundane and perfect manner. Drawing from both the laws of revealed truths and the laws of hidden truths, they follow sacred writings, understandings, and souls. It doesn't just have a mere historical narrative but possesses a vital perfection, presented to them as a whole, embodying reason in everything. For the sake of popular acceptance, it's important for us to openly embrace the holy beauty of sacred symbols. We shouldn't disregard them, as they are essential for depicting divine characters and the visible images of mysteries and supernatural contemplations. Indeed, not only are the superessential lights and invisible things represented symbolically, like the supernatural God being referred to as fire and the invisible words of God being fiery. Moreover, the divine adornments of invisible and intellectual angels are described in various forms and fiery representations. We need to understand the image of fire differently according to the superintelligence of God, differently according to its invisible providences or reasons, and differently in angels, one according to cause, another according to subsistence, and another according to participation, and others differently based on this theory and the order set by intention. It's important not to confuse sacred symbols, but to apply them appropriately to causes, subsistences, virtues, orders, or dignities, to replicate those that are clearly composed. To avoid stretching beyond necessity in these matters, we already know what's at hand. We say that all food is perfective for those being nourished, filling their imperfections and needs, healing the weak, preserving life, making them flourish, renewing them, and providing vital benefits, while simply rejecting what is distressing and imperfect, granting joy and perfection. Therefore, the superwise and best wisdom is rightly praised by these words, setting up a mystical cup and pouring out sacred drink for them, but even more so by offering solid food before these, with a lofty proclamation, desiring those who desire it most beautifully. Therefore, divine wisdom offers a double portion of food, one solid and edible, and the other liquid and abundant, extending its provident goodness in a cup. The round and expansive bowl symbolizes an all-encompassing providence that has no beginning and is infinite. It extends into everything while remaining within itself, standing in the unchanging likeness of nature, perfectly placed, uniformly and immovably, just like the bowl stands. Moreover, wisdom is said to build a house for itself, offering solid food, drink, and the bowl. This clearly reveals divine symbols to those who act divinely, because the most perfect providence is the cause of all existence and well-being. It extends into everything, becomes everything, and contains everything, yet remains exalted above all. It is nothing in nothing by nothing but exists eternally, standing and remaining in itself forever in the same way. It exists without being made outside itself, neither abandoned by its own gravity, unchangeable stance, nor goodness. It works the most complete and perfect providences within itself, coming into everything, remaining in itself, always standing and moving, neither standing nor moving. If anyone says that providential actions in standing and providing occur simultaneously, both naturally and supernaturally, but what is solid food, and what is liquid? The best wisdom is praised for providing these. I believe the solid food carries the essence of intellectual and nurturing perfection, and natural immutability, through which divine things were established. It shares powerful, uniform, and inseparable knowledge with the intellectuals of sensible things, to whom the wisest Paul, drawing from wisdom, truly delivers solid food. The liquid, however, flows abundantly into everything with rushing strength, and through various and many divided ways, leading those nurtured into simple and unwavering divine knowledge, guided by goodness. Because of this, divine and invisible words are imagined as dew, water, milk, wine, and honey due to their life-giving abundance. Like water, they have strength; like milk, they are nourishing; like wine, they are revitalizing; and like honey, they are both purifying and preserving. Divine wisdom generously grants these to those who come, providing abundant feasts without ever running out. This is truly feasting, and for these reasons, it is praised as life-giving, nurturing to the young, renewing, and perfecting. In this sacred revelation of feasting, even God, the cause of all good things, is said to be intoxicated by the fullness and understanding of the feast. Or rather, we might say, the drink of God's feast is the most perfect and indescribable immeasurable abundance. Just as for us, intoxication is an excessive filling and an ecstatic state of mind and senses, so in God, intoxication is understood as nothing other than the superabundance and source of all good things beyond measure. The result of this intoxication is an ecstasy of wisdom, a supreme understanding of God, where understanding is exalted by comprehending beyond comprehension, beyond being itself. God is the best of everything, intoxicating and satisfying, as the excellence of the immeasurable universe of all perfect plenitude, and again, the summit above all. From this, those who wish to partake in the feasts in the kingdom of God's saints will do so in the same way, as it says, the King himself will make them recline and will serve them. These signify a common and equally invisible fellowship of the saints in divine goods, the church of the firstborn enrolled in heaven, and the spirits of the saints perfected in all good things, filled first with the best. We see rest as a relief from many pains, a life untouched by harm, and a divine interaction filled with sacred meaning in the light and realm of the living, abundant with generous and blessed gifts. Through these, everyone finds joy. It is a time to rejoice, with Jesus guiding them to relax, serving them, granting eternal rest, and sharing the fullness of blessings. I am well aware of the investigation and the blessed rest of God, and the awakening that has been revealed. When we say the divine rest is distant from God and not shared with those provided for, being vigilant is to offer them teaching or assist those praying for salvation. Many theological symbols have been left out. Thus, considering it unnecessary to repeat the same things to the same people, other matters are considered. Meanwhile, you should follow the good teachings, recognizing the writings, and we rest from what has been said, surpassing, I believe, what our writings owe. Yet we send this entire symbolic theology of ours, through which you will discover the house of wisdom with its 7 well-defined columns, its solid nourishment divided into incense and bread, and what is the moderation of wine, and again, what is the intoxication from God's abundance. These things are explained more fully within it. It is, I believe, the finest creator of all symbolic theologies, fitting to the sacred traditions and truths of the teachings.
10. To John, the theologian, apostle, and evangelist assigned to the island of Patmos.
Calling upon the sacred soul, most beloved, you are closer to me than even the apostles. Greetings, truly beloved, truly lovable and desirable, and greatly cherished by the beloved. Is it any wonder if Christ truly speaks, and unjust cities harass the disciples, claiming dignity for themselves? Being tainted by the holy ones, they remain distinct, returning as truly meaningful images in the visible world of the invisible. In the ages to come, God won't be the cause of these separations from himself, but those who separate themselves entirely from God, as we see others already united with God, are those who love the truth and indeed withdraw from material sufferings. In all evils, they cherish peace with freedom and divine love of all good things, beginning in this life the sanctification of the future, living angelically and beautifully among men, free from suffering, with divine grace, goodness, and other excellent qualities. Therefore, do not lead yourselves to madness by only judging bodily passions through feelings, I believe. However, should they unjustly afflict you, thinking to limit you wrongly by the intervening light of the gospel, I pray that they leave these actions behind, be converted to good, and draw us into the light. But we, not deprived of John's brilliant light, are now prepared in the memory and renewal of your true theology, and soon, I boldly say, we will be united with you. I say this confidently, knowing these things beforehand and learning from God, that you will be released from custody in Patmos, return to Asia, perform the good works of God, and pass them on to those with you. Once you were built by noble patrons, now, alas, subjected to servants, you have fallen, poor Rome. Your kings have neglected you for so long, and your name and honor have been handed over to the Greeks. Constantinople, thriving, is now called New Rome. With your traditions and walls, old Rome, you crumble. The empire has moved on, but your pride stayed with you. The chase for wealth consumes you excessively. The masses, gathered from the farthest corners of the world, once servants, are now your rulers. No noble leaders remain among you, and your free-born citizens labor in the Pelasgian fields. You have inflicted cruel wounds on the living saints, and now you are used to selling their dead remains. If it weren't for the merit of Peter and Paul supporting you, you would have been wretched Rome for a long time now.